y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. We're super excited to be talking to Ingrid Aybar of Arch Larimar today. Ingrid is super special to us because we recently took a trip up to New York for our first trade show with daughters. And through Meg Leung, who we interviewed for our Reiki miniseries, we met Ingrid, who's a good friend of hers. And Ingrid turns out to be an attorney by day, but also has this...
superwoman by night.
Yeah, superwoman, crazy, spiritual, intuitive by night. And she's just a really gifted tarot reader. She actually created her own deck of cards that she had letterpress. It's all completely handmade. It's beautiful.
I mean, I've literally never seen craftsmanship like in printing like that in my life.
Incredible.
I'm so obsessed with her deck of cards, but also the way that she does her spreads. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think her message about, sort of stepping away and exploring your own relationship to your intuition and what feels right is so important because, she made her own spread and she's able to interpret it in a way that is so unique, and it still touches on all of, the elements that a traditional tarot spread would. But the way she found it, I think, gives her like a closer connection to it almost. Yeah. And I think actually everyone that we interviewed for this mini series said something very similar. And it's so important, I think, just to sort of cultivate that and not feel like you have to work within the confines of something very specific all the time.
Yeah, like the rules are set for you or something, or that you have to like abide by certain very strict practices or something. Yeah, she calls it the rainbow spread, and it's 7 cards. It's beautiful. It's very much in line with the design of her tarot deck, as well as just the way she sort of reads as well. Everything just kind of flows. And I don't think either one of us had ever had a reading by somebody who created their own deck as well. So that was super special.
Or at a bar.
Yeah, or at a bar, which was really interesting too. But yeah, there was something incredibly special about that particular reading. We're so beyond excited to talk to you just because we had such an incredible experience with you in New York. I think after we got back to LA, Sam and I, even when we were there, we were just like not sure what to make of it because it was so mind-blowing and it was so incredibly, I can only speak for myself, but it hit home, like everything that you said during that reading. And then also just being able to have that reading with the card deck that you designed, and then within your own spread and everything. It was just such an awesome kind of life-changing experience for sure for me. I felt really, really grateful to have met you in New York and had that experience.
Thank you. I loved meeting you guys too. I don't know if the life-changing experience part scared me right now, but I am glad that you enjoyed it, and I enjoyed definitely doing the readings with you beautiful ladies. You both have amazing energies.
You're a litigator, and that's also something I find so fascinating about you because you are so in that, I guess, cerebral world, but then you have such a connection to the spiritual side. And I'm just curious how it all even started for you, like how you even found tarot.
I think tarot kind of found me when I was really young, maybe like 7 or 8 years old. I went to go see my cousin Hilda. She was there with some friends, and this lady's like, "Hey, she could read tarot cards." I was like, "Okay, fun, let's do this." And my cousin's like, "No, she can't read tarot cards. She's a kid." And I remember them just, not them, it was just them too, but I remember this lady spreading these cards and telling me, shuffle them and turn them around and tell me what you see. I don't remember the card. I don't remember what I said, but I remember this woman's reaction. And it was very much like, "See, oh my God, I told you she can read the cards." And I remember just flipping these cards and finding them ugly. Like just finding them like, oof, what is this? And not wanting anything to do with it. Years later, I would say decades later, I discovered that those were the Thoth tarot cards by Aleister Crowley, and they were designed by Lady Frida Harris. And this is years later, and I've never liked those cards. I don't know why. I don't even own them. I have over 100 decks, and I don't own that particular set. So I always like to say, like, tarot kind of found me. And then when I was in college students tend to be experimental. And I remember going to the West Village on Christopher Street and getting my first deck of cards, which were the Rider Waite cards. And they were dated copyright 1971, which is the year I was born. And since then, I've always played with them with my friends. So I always like to say, like, the card deck or that vibration or that energy kind of found me. But I didn't really get serious about it until my 40s, like almost 2 decades later.
Was there something in your life that triggered that sudden interest or like deep dive into it?
For me personally, yes. I was struggling with my father. He was someone that I've been taking care of as a caretaker since I was 18 years old. And there was a point in my 40s where I got very resentful of my caretaking role with my father. And during that time, I was getting these very vivid dreams. And at some point, I discovered, oh my God, these are tarot images that I'm receiving in dream state. And I started just writing down these images. The story is a lot longer. We don't have time for all that. But it was definitely a moment of crisis, a spiritual crisis, I would say, within myself. And I was told in dream states, draw me. And I was illustrating what it is that I saw in my dreams. Then the dreams became more of a directive. Like, it was like, draw me, go get some pencils, do these illustrations. And at one point it was like, draw a complete deck. Only this time I didn't have the dreams to assist me as to what those would look like. But the drawing part was the healing part for me with my father. So I was reverting back to my childhood. I used to draw a lot when I was a child. I used to write a lot when I was a child. So that was reconnecting me to some aspect of my inner child. And in that process, I was forgiving my father. I was forgiving myself. I was healing something deeper. So for me, the cards have always been sort of like a healing modality personally. And then the details of how Arc En Ciel Tarot came about was, again, in dream states. Like, it was very clear it had to be letterpress. It was very clear what the colors were. It was very clear sort of like what they looked like. I knew what this deck was going to look like before they actually came into being, but it took years, I would say 4 years for it to manifest, or 3 years, because I was looking for the right printer. I was looking for the right associations. I would go down the wrong path and the whole project would halt. But again, I didn't know how big it would be in my life personally. I thought it was just going to be like this cute little project that I did on the side, and it's turning out to be something much greater than what I anticipated. And it also gave me sort of like a view into the whole kingdom, because for me, tarot is like a whole kingdom of archetypal personalities and patterns within ourselves, within society, within the world. So it's just been an amazing journey for me, truly.
Wow. So the deck that you actually designed and created, did it stem from these initial sketches, or that was literally a complete departure and separate sort of vision?
No, it definitely stemmed from the initial sketches that I had. They were very clean lines. It was very simple. It was high vibratory in the sense that there was nothing in it that, in my opinion, had sort of like a darker or a negative tonality to it, if that's the word I can use. There was one point where I literally went into a trance. There were a couple of images that I was drawing, and it was like I was almost not in my body while I was sketching what they would look like. And I did not use those sketches for Arc En Ciel because I did not trust that sort of out of body experience. And artists will experience this all the time when they're in drawing something or illustrating something or into a project, they lose track of time. So it's that kind of same experience that I had, but because I wasn't aware, like fully in the moment or aware, or I felt like I disappeared into the project, I did not use that. I felt very strongly like I needed to know exactly what I was trying to sort of put out there in the world in terms of what the design concepts would be of the illustrations. But that was an unusual experience, and a lot of this started in 2012, but a lot of my quote unquote ability to see, for lack of a better word, really opened up with this project. When I was younger, of course, I would see more, feel more. I have these weird experiences, and I guess it came back with these cards. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's a very strange story, but
I mean, what you were able to accomplish with the design of that deck is like, I remember when Alan and I first saw the cards, we were like floored by the amount of intricacy, by the letter pressing, like the amount of like attention to detail and the way that you were able to have them produced is like, as especially for two people having come from advertising, we are like mind blown. That was like, I mean, you basically picked up a whole craft in manifesting that deck, and they're so beautiful.
And thank you for acknowledging that, because it is a craft, and I can't take credit for the letterpress product itself, because that's a craft that comes from really experienced people, experienced printers, people that hold printing to an art form. And so I definitely credit the companies no longer around, but the individuals that helped produce that set of cards, because I had gone literally everywhere around the world looking for really good printers and high quality printers and printers that would look at every single detail. And I was able to find it in New York City, ironically, after traveling everywhere for the right printer. But I really credit that technical artistry to the printers. I obviously had nothing to do with it, but they were instrumental in listening to me, hearing what it is that I wanted to visually conceptualize in this world and manifest. And we went through 2 rounds, or maybe it was even 1. It was very quick, where they did one sort of set. And I was like, whoa, this is it. Just change this little thing over here, but this is it. And we all agreed it was almost like a celestial presentation. Because even they were like, whoa, this is really amazing. And to the point where I had commissioned another printing company to do the box set for it, and the box that they produced were horrid. And the printers I was working with, they were like, we're definitely not putting our cards in there. Everything needed to match a really high vibratory sort of presentation, and they got that. And that has a lot to do with the team.
It's like the universe channeled these cards through you, or I don't even know if that's the right way of saying it, but it's almost like it needed to be made, and you were the vessel, that kind of carried that message through.
I felt that way a lot. Sorry to interrupt, but I did feel that way a lot. I still feel that way. I still feel I was simply a channel for these cards. And they still mesmerize me. They still surprise me. They still bring wonderful joys in my life every day. And I still can't believe this was something that came out of either my subconscious or my conscious, like whatever it is. I don't know, but I feel that way.
What you were saying about it being sort of a vehicle to bring you back to some of your childhood abilities or proclivities, I guess, is also really amazing. It's almost kind of like it showed you this innate ability to connect to a higher power that you had. I feel like that was just part of you.
I think we all have that higher power, or I know what you're trying to say, like we all have that intuitive sense. I think it was just divine timing or universal timing or whatever you want to call it, where a lot of people are just opening up to this idea that we're all intuitive, that some of us can see, some of us can hear, some of us can feel things that are beyond this material realm. And I was brought to an understanding through this process that it's okay to be me, because I shut it down for a very long time, through my 20s, 30s. I mean, there was nothing. I felt nothing. I saw nothing. I heard nothing. I sensed nothing. And then when this happened, it was a big, it was like, here it is. This is what you can do. And I didn't quite feel when I was a child that it was a quote unquote gift, or I thought it was a curse, to be quite honest. And so as an older person in my 40s, I felt even more scared about seeing things that people normally don't see, hearing things, having dreams that were quote unquote prophetic and or somehow would predict what would happen. I did not feel this was a good thing at all. And slowly I started just accepting this reality, but I also sought mental health counsel, because I was not one of those people that felt I could live in these two worlds as an attorney and having the spiritual world also intertwined with that. And I had this wonderful lady once tell me, because I always used to do this, well, I'm such a left brainer. Like, I like to analyze things and I like to read things, and I'm a big researcher and writer. And she's like, Ingrid, we use both sides of our brains. It's just you're not just right-brained. People use both sides, but we are so used to and conditioned to speaking in that kind of terminology. When we're an artist, we're right-brainers. When we're intuitive, we're right-brainers. So I was very much stuck in that linguistic understanding of my analytic self and my creative self. I somehow in my head had determined this cannot be. Like, I have to pick a side. And when she said that, I was like, of course we use both sides of our brains. Of course we do. It's just what we will decide to quote unquote trigger the most, right? Like, they're all like these electrodes or whatever going through our brains. But it's what are we going to activate the most within us? And through that, I was able to determine it's okay to activate both sides of your brain and be creative and intuitive and spiritual. It's totally okay with the analytical and the linear thinking and the more structured thinking of the left brain. So it was challenging for me, though. It wasn't, and I still hide. I'm still not totally out of the realm of being okay with people knowing, certainly not in my professional life, I'm not okay with people knowing that there's a deck of cards that I produce, or that I do readings, or that I'm intuitive, or that I can see things. And I'm not okay with that, because I'm afraid of the judgment still, but I'm working on it.
It seems like these gifts are so, like, you're so in tuned to your intuition now, and all of these dreams and these readings that you have, that how do you, especially because coming from the corporate world, we can definitely empathize with needing to sort of keep a boundary between those two parts of yourself. But how do you sort of like keep some of those things from bleeding over into your professional career? Because it seems like you're a lot more in control of your ability to access these gifts than we are. But I'm like, okay, if I get a dream, it's coming. Like, I don't know if I could like stop it or.
Well, you know what? I would say you could definitely stop. We're a lot more powerful in terms of what happens in our lives than we give ourselves credit for sometimes. And for me, it was just a practice of healthy boundaries. I needed to have healthy boundaries. It actually helps me a lot to have a very structured day job and then do whatever I do with either parties or celebrity, like whatever I do with the reading part of it, a spiritual part of it. It helps me ground myself to keep it compartmentalized. And I know that being ethical is a very strong element of my character. So I don't mix the two. If we're talking, if you have a legal question and we're doing a reading, guess what? I'm not going to give you advice on your legal issues because I very much compartmentalize those two worlds. And that came from other experiences where there was a bleed over, or I felt like I was seeing things at work, or I was feeling things at work. I was like, no, I can't do this. And I got into very strong prayer work and meditation work, and I started doing qigong, and all of that helps me just balance my worlds.
Well, I also find that you literally are like a poster child for the ability to exist in these two very divergent kind of worlds, you know? Like whether you want to be that or not. I just feel like, yes, the two are, you know, honestly, this has like been a theme in both Sam and I's lives, like this entire journey where it's like you're fighting the, you know, the cerebral logical side, and because we were so indoctrinated in that way of being where that was truth, you know, but almost negating the spiritual side as being fluffy or ungrounded. But now I feel like I'm starting just tiptoeing, not fully in, but tiptoeing into this new understanding that like it has to be a holistic approach. Not that you should mix spirituality in with your, you know,
corporate career.
Yeah, your attorney work. But you embody those two sides so fully that how can they not help each other, right? In some sort of way.
Agreed. And they help each other very subtly. So it's a very fine line, and it's a very definitive line, right? Because I actually had someone this weekend who was doing crystal healing and crystal business, and she came from a corporate finance world. And she came to the realization that she loves money, that she's going to go back into her corporate world. And she has this element of sadness in her. And I'm like, dude, it's okay. It's okay to love money. But now you're like a different person going into that space. You know, now you're going to say, oh, if something's disturbing me, maybe I can go home and do some self-healing with some crystals. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I am a different person because I've read more of the mystical understandings of Tarot. Like, I go into my space understanding, oh, that person or this case or this situation is deeper than what it appears. But I don't have to go in there and advocate and say like, hey, do you know this is like the Tower card in the tarot card. It's like, you know, this stuff is going to get destroyed. Like, I would never say that, but it's nice to understand, oh, this destruction is happening and one of these two people will come out of this having learned a larger lesson, a beautiful lesson. They just don't know it then or not yet. So it meshes in that way, but for you, again, I'm a big advocate of being ethical. And you don't want to, you know, approach somebody and say, oh, you know what I just saw? I just saw like your grandmother, and you don't want to do that in that environment. And at the same time, you don't want to have a reading and say, you know what, that legal issue, that problem that you're having, I think you should do X, Y, Z. I mean, they're just healthy boundaries, but the meshing part or the crossover is more for you. It's not about them. It's about you understanding your different role in a certain space. So I understand what you guys are saying. Like, you often think, oh, I wish more people knew about this, or crystals, or tarot cards, or breath work, or Reiki, or whatever. Why do you wish that? It's always going to be about how you've changed. And now how are you going to show up in that same space?
Girl, it's like you're channeling the conversation Ellen and I just had at lunch.
So spot on.
It makes sense, no? I mean, it's not so much an intuitive sense in understanding that. It's almost like a logical sense for me that this is what we have to offer. It's basically a better version of ourselves.
Yeah. I think like we almost are conditioned to believe that if we aren't in the process of producing something or bringing something to the table, that we're, like our value is somehow less than someone else who's either making more money or in a higher position than us at our jobs or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It's like we bring positive change to the people around us by learning how to evolve ourselves, and it doesn't have to be directly related to something like material or tangible. A lot of it is just how we want to show up for ourselves and for the people around us, because those interactions are what is going to shape everything that happens around us.
And that to me is a person that's awakening. If you can understand that, that's the key to this whole world or realm of spirituality or of woo. There's so many people that I know that go into this whole spiritual path, and they've left corporate or 9-to-5 jobs, and all of a sudden they feel they have to convert the world to whatever it is they're doing. And that to me is not someone that's fully awakened, right? Because the idea is to change and evolve yourself. And in that process, I feel anyway, very strongly, you will attract others that are either on your same path and or others that you can still learn from. We're always going to be a work in progress, especially when we go into this whole spiritual, I guess, rainbow, I want to say. I was going to say a spiritual rabbit hole, but it's more like a rainbow for me. It's like it's a never ending, like, where does it end? It doesn't, it doesn't have an end, but we know that we're following something of true richness.
You can't change everyone, and that's not your responsibility. The only thing you can do really is lead by example, if anything, and allow people their own experiences and their own journeys to learn in their own time.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but it's like one thing that you happen to be doing on your spiritual journey may not resonate with everyone.
One of the things that stuck out so much in the reading that you gave us is your unique spread. And I'm curious, like, what the story is behind that spread and how you came to it.
That was also a dream state sort of spread. I was trying to determine, once I had the images sort of laid out and the illustrations and the design of those illustrations done, I was like, what am I going to name these cards? And there's a little trick that I do, which is right before I'm about to sleep, I'll ask my subconscious self, like, give me the name of the cards. So basically, this old man shows up in this dream. He looks like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings with this. He's wearing a white robe. He has a young face. He's not as old as Gandalf. And he has this golden sort of rope around his waist. And he says nothing, but he puts his hands all the way up in sort of prayer mode, and then he opens his arms and it forms a rainbow. And inside of the rainbow, that's the first time I saw these cards letterpressed, because before that, in my imagined state, it wasn't even a dream state, but I had imagined, oh, when I do this, I'll have them printed in China and mass produced. But that's when I had seen this, and I'm like, oh my God. And I remember waking up from that dream, writing down rainbow And getting up in the morning and saying the name of the cards are rainbow, like that's so tacky. I'm not gonna do it. It's not happening. And then I started just looking at different languages, and I chose the French Arc En Ciel. So that's the name of the rainbow. And then the spread was also another dream state to make it look like a rainbow. But there are other spreads around that have that sort of shape. I don't know if they call them rainbow shape, but that's how I designed it, only because it made sense to me to match the name of the card deck itself. And then the number 7, we only see 7 colors with our naked eye of the rainbow colors. And so I just wanted to put 7 cards down. And the middle card, I'm very much into numerology. So the middle card was the 4th card, which is the higher learning. So the middle card of my spread, the Arc En Ciel spread, is always going to be the answer to your question or your inquiry in terms of like the guidance that you can get. But yeah, that was a fun spread. But you can, in my booklet, you can use any spread that you're comfortable with. That's one of the things I always try to teach people when it comes to cards. Don't stick to like a formula just because the booklet said, use these spreads. Use this whatever spread you're comfortable with.
I'm super curious. This might be a stupid question, but I'm curious, like, do you feel more connected to your cards in doing readings than you do with other cards when you're doing readings, or does it not?
That is so not a stupid question. What an amazing question. I feel completely different with every set of cards I've ever played with. I don't know if I feel a special quote unquote connection to this set of cards, but I know that my transmission of information is completely different depending on the deck of cards I'm using. So for this one that I use, I tend to sort of communicate information that's definitely not predictive. It's more about you, your personality, your character, what you can do to change to kind of bring in what you most desire. But I can use like a Truth Finders cards, and it starts to get very like specific on predictions, and which I'm not a big fan of, by the way, of predictions. I think that's like a sort of like a side effect to playing with these cards. And well, you're going to have me back at some other point, but we can talk more of the mystical, esoteric part of it. But yeah, I feel completely different. I don't know if I feel completely more quote unquote connected to it. I love all the cards that I have, and I love all of the images. I just know that it transmits a different vibration within me depending on the card deck that I'm using. But I love them all, not one more than the other. Definitely because I sometimes feel these are super high vibration, and there are moments where I'm like, I just want to be silly and use a silly card deck. But I think based on the readings that I've done, I've had people that have had the other cards too. So I don't know. You'd have to ask other people.
How do you pick which deck you're going to use before you do a reading for somebody?
Since I created the Arc En Ciel, I do use my deck in especially parties, because people are expecting that. And so I don't use as much anybody else's deck. But with my friends, I'll just lay down a couple of cards and usually tell people, pick the one that you resonate with and let them pick the one that they want the reading with. But for corporate clients or parties and events, I definitely take my own deck to those events, and it's equally as fun. So
you said something earlier that I just kind of want to understand better. You said when you want to feel a little bit more silly, you might use a different deck, and I'm curious, like, what is it about a particular deck that feels a little bit, let's say, more light?
It's always about the illustrations. I always tell people, when you decide to go out there and experiment and get your own deck, please get one that you resonate with in terms of the imagery. Don't necessarily get one because someone else said, this is the traditional one. You should get the Rider Wyatt cards, or the Pamela, Rider Smith, Wyatt Smith cards. That's changed names a bunch of times. Or get this one because you'll get more connected to the spirit, whatever. Get the one that feels more like you. I had one guy, I swear to God, this is true story. And he's like, yeah, I have the writer down, Wyatt cards, and I don't know about that. And I'm like, I looked at him, I was like, but you're like a Star Wars guy. You got to get a deck of cards that's going to match your vibration. So if there's a Star Wars deck of cards out there, get those. If there's a Game of Thrones, and there is a Game of Thrones tarot deck, which I actually own, because I love the show. So get that deck and see what comes out. And so for me, it's always about the image. And some decks that I've have, it's about the artist. So I admire the artist and I'll get it because of that. But it's definitely the artwork. It's not so much for me the booklet or the concepts of esoteric symbolism. That's a whole different, like I said, that's a whole different conversation we can get into at some other point because it goes into history and stuff like that. But yeah, I always tell, so for me, I have an Alice in Wonderland deck, I think that's like silly. And if I want to feel very fantastical and, engage with creatures of the, or forest creatures or whatever, I play with that.
Oh my gosh. I actually really love that. And actually, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I think that was sort of my faux pas I bought this deck that I was told, just start using this once you get more familiar with the cards. It's really easy to learn what each card means through doing this. And then once you get more familiar with the images, you'll start receiving messages in those images. But quite frankly, this deck of cards so does not resonate with me. The visuals in it so much don't, that I never want to open it. I am never driven to be I wonder what my card's going to be today. Because I'm I fucking hate that card.
So, and then you won't play with them and you won't experiment with them and you won't, go find a deck that you love the imagery of. And I think if you're going to be getting very serious about the study of tarot deck, definitely everyone should have the Rider Waite Pamela Coleman Smith deck. I feel very strongly about that. But you can definitely, so here's what I would do. Get the deck you love. Don't look at the booklet that comes with it. Just put it aside. Look at each card, get a journal, write down the visual of what you see. How do you feel about the colors? How do you feel about the image? What message do you think it relates? And then go and look at the booklet and see how much of that you can match. This might take 78 days because it's 78 cards. You might do it one a day. You might do it all in one sitting, whatever. But see if that matches. And if it does, then you can start experimenting just with that beautiful deck of cards because that means you connected with it somehow.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah, don't ever and the other faux pas that I don't like, or the other sort of myth that's out there, it's you can't buy your own deck of cards, you have to be gifted them. That's such BS. That comes from this understanding that mystical sort of secrets or the esoteric can only be passed on to another student by a master. But we're not in that world. I mean, there are people that are in that world, but you and I are not in that world. We're in some occult understanding of someone having to gift us something so that we can then be worthy enough to play with them or understand the cards. I don't think that's a good practice to have. I don't know. I think it lends itself to the more negative aspects of tarot, the more mysterious aspects that is unapproachable or inaccessible.
It almost feels a little bit more fear-based.
It is. When people say that, it is, in my opinion, which is why I always tell people that it's BS.
Are there any important life lessons that you've learned through your tarot practice?
Yes, to be playful with it and also take it seriously. There are some decks that definitely, in my opinion, can sort of open you up to different kinds of experiences in terms of it feeling, for example, the Toth deck. I feel like the Toth deck is more like it feels like more like a Ouija board, like it's opening up a portal of mediumship, sort of, or that kind of connection. So it's both don't take it seriously and take it seriously. So I don't know how to explain that, but that's been sort of my take on how it's affected my life. Like, I can't be just joking around with it too much, and I also can't take it too seriously.
That actually resonates a lot. I feel like that's a theme that keeps on coming up in my life, because I tend to take things much more on the serious side than on the light side. And it's only very recently, after kind of working through some shit, that I'm starting to be able to really tap into the joy of these, like different life experiences or whatnot. But it's starting to get me to realize, like, not everything has to be so
serious,
like just doomsday.
So what I was going to say, that one of the other aspects of tarot that's affected me is also understanding that looking at things very joyfully and with grace actually elevates our experience, so that it's not so heavy and negative and serious. And it's okay to be serious, but not serious to the point that you're living in fear.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like every time, this is going to sound kind of weird, but I feel like every time I start to take like shit real seriously, where I'm like, okay, something just happened and I need to like really respect this process because I was not prepared for that. It's like, I'll be literally walking up to my front door and like a spider web will wrap around my face, and it's like such a big spider web I can hear it peeling off of the leaves of the tree next to me, and it's like, how can you not laugh? It's like all the nature's all around, and it's just like, a bird. I like the other day on Saturday I wasn't feeling well. Okay, I got bit by a cat, which is like a whole nother story, but like I wasn't feeling well because I was on these antibiotics from it, and then I took Mika to the park, my dog, and we were just walking around, and then as I'm walking, my arm is swinging and a bird takes a giant shit right on my wrist, and I was like, what are the chances of that?
Yeah, don't take any of that seriously. I mean, like, because then you'll get trapped into this fear thing, like, oh my God, what's happening? I had a bird just shit on me, and it was a spider web, and a cat bit me. Like, it's just shit that happens. It's just like, don't even read too much into that. It's just, because then you'll go into that now that's going into the rabbit hole of not knowing, where your mental state will take you, and it could take. Our minds are so creative. It could take you anywhere with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was burned out and we were still working in our corporate jobs, like I remember, I very much was in this victim mentality of everything is happening to me. Like, what the fuck? Like, every time I don't even want to get up anymore because like shit just goes wrong every time I like do anything. And it's really easy to spin into that, especially if you're stressed out, you're burned out, you're exhausted. Whereas like, now I feel like those are just reminders to like let go.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that in itself, having the clarity to see and the space to see that in itself is a gift, because, oh my God, I'm so much happier now.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that. Sometimes when I do readings, people think that it's going to be foreboding, or, because that's the perception that we have when we see it in the movie theater. Somebody's going to take out the cards and they're going to predict something horrible. And like 99% of the time, I always say something super positive and fun, because it's true, because that's more of my reality, or that's more of the reality of the person that I'm reading. Yeah, it's always going to be a matter of perception.
Are there any like absolute like no-nos for you when you are reading cards, like things that you just stay away from?
Other than the law?
Yeah.
Other than the law, there was one time, yes, and that has to do, again, going back to ethics. And just because you can see something or sense something or even hear something does not necessarily mean you need to communicate it to the person that you're doing the reading from, because they may need to learn from some tough lessons. And it's not my place to tell them how to proceed. So in any event, I did this reading, and the person asked me, should I go ahead and proceed with, let's say, this act, right? This project. And I felt, everything in my body felt like, no, right? Like it just felt like it's, no, but it's not my place to tell her, no, you shouldn't proceed with that project. So what I did was, knowing how her intuition communicated with her, which was, it manifested very quickly in her body, I said to her, well, how does your body feel when you speak about this project? And she was communicating to me, well, every time I think about it, my stomach hurts and I don't feel very well. I feel nauseous. And then I returned to her and I said, well, is that giving you the answer? And she could not discern whether or not her body sensations were giving her the answer. Now, you and I would say, right, like, girl, your body's hurting, you're about to get diarrhea, you're not feeling too well. I think that's a no. I think that means do not go down that road. But her hesitation, even in acknowledging her own body language, told me, do not tell her not to go down this process. She had to figure it out, and she was getting a very clear physical manifestation. Long story short, she went with the project and it was disastrous. She learned the biggest lessons of her life through that disaster and through that destruction. And she is completely a different, better, in my opinion, better individual for it. So just because my big no-no is just because you see it in the cards or you feel it or you sense it or you hear it or whatever, I have to pause and say, is this a proper thing for me to respond to? Just because it's there doesn't mean I have to share it. I have to be very careful because people do have their own free will, and I am not a guru. I don't predict what your soul or your spirit needs to learn. I just try to focus on, here's your character, here are the archetypes that are showing up. This is the predominant traits in this character. These are the predominant traits in that character. Or if I do communication is very important with this partnership, learning how to understand each other's language. I do stuff like that because I feel it empowers you. But I don't do things like, I don't think you should do this and I don't think you should do that. And I think you should go ahead and do this. And I think that's where readers get in trouble, because then they start sort of dictating as if they know what's best for that other person. And I don't know what's best for myself, let alone somebody else.
Yeah, you can never rob somebody of their journey, right?
Correct. Even when they desire for you to tell them exactly what steps in their journey they should take.
Right. You can't live their life for them either.
No, some people are quite persistent, let me tell you. But it's really important for you to know who you are, to completely stay grounded, to draw the line and have those healthy boundaries. Otherwise, you're susceptible to falling in the trap of even thinking on an egoic level that you really do have the answers. And I don't think that tarot or any other celestial modality out there gives any human being that level of authority on earth, really.
Yeah, and actually you bring up a really good point about, even as somebody going and seeking out a tarot reading, just being a little bit more careful, I guess, or just more cognizant about who you're going to or what you're stepping into. And I'm curious if you have any advice about that, like just...
Yeah, that's a strange one for me to answer, right? Because people come to me, but I think that people who do come to me, they know my reading is going to be different. And I will say I've been one of those people that goes to the readers because I want my predictions read, or I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say I've never done that. Of course I've done that. Just always take things lightly and understand that when you do go to a reader and you do even get astrology done or whatever, just know that that person is simply another conduit. You're the one in control. You're the one in power. Don't give the reader your power. That's the best thing I can do. But have fun. Have fun with the experience. I just had a freaking reading the other day with a woman that I was like, I didn't know. It was an event, and I was like, oh, let's try this out. Was she good? Not for me, because I'm the best. No, I'm kidding. But it was fun. It was fun. I don't even remember what she said, but at that moment, it was a fun reading. So just don't fall into the trap of more like the gypsy readings where it's like, oh, I see XYZ, and you're going to have to buy this $300 crystal in order for me to clear you. That's bullshit. Just walk away. Give them the $10 that they lured you in with, but don't do anything beyond that. That's just a gimmick or something. I don't know.
Are there other modalities that you mix in with your tarot? Because I know when we were in New York, you were doing numerology readings for both of us, but that was kind of separate. And I'm curious, do you mix the two together sometimes?
I do mix them with my readings a lot, actually. So I mix them a lot, and then I don't have anything I actually don't use astrology or crystals, but I'm working on a deck that sort of uses the constellations a little bit with numerology, and that's like a whole separate thing. But I do try to I don't have a problem with mixing things here and there. And then there are times where I do a strict sort of like mystical reading just on the card, which is it's a little bit different than your traditional tarot readings. But that's more intuitive, I think. I don't know.
This is so awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us about it.
Thank you for inviting me.
I feel like there's already going to be like a Tarot 2, 3, 4 part series just where we can dig in a little bit deeper and just understand it even better.
I know. I feel like this just barely scratched the surface. I mean, when we met you in New York, I mean, it was like we kept saying it felt like a portal opened that weekend.
Yeah, very much so.
It was just every interaction that we had with everybody was really powerful in like a really amazing way. So thank you so much. Like, we talk about meeting you all the time. Like, you have been such a positive influence and like such an incredible part of our journey.
And I have to thank May for that, because she was, saying, you have to meet these ladies. Daughters, they're fucking awesome. And I was like, wow, I'd love to meet them when they get here. And then I met you and I was like, wow, it was like a very bright experience and a very pleasant one meeting you both. So thank you, May.
Yeah, we love May.
Well, I feel like these situations aren't just coincidences. So I feel like New York is very much in our future.
Come back and visit and we'll have another reading. Maybe I'll bring the Alice in Wonderland deck. How about that?
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
That's literally one of my favorite stories ever. So yeah,
that'd be fun. That's a fun one.
Is there anything you wanted to mention before we close out that we didn't ask you?
Before you play with tarot cards, I'd always say, like, just meditate and either do prayer work, meditate, and really center yourself before you play. I think that's probably the little advice that I forgot to mention earlier.
No, that's really good advice. Well, thank you so much, Ingrid. This was awesome.
Thank you, ladies.
It's so good to hear your voice again. We miss you already. So if you'd like to follow Ingrid on Instagram, her handle is at Arch Larimar, ArchLarimar, and she's also got a website at archlarimar.com.
Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.